A bounty was placed on his head, 100 camels, red and black, for whoever brought him dead. The most powerful city in Arabia wanted him gone. His own neighbors threw garbage at his door. His own people hurled stones at his body. His own relatives plotted to kill him in his sleep. He was left starving for months at a time. He buried his children with his own hands. He stood completely alone against an entire world that wanted to destroy him. And yet, 14 centuries later, over 2 billion people followed the path he walked. This is not just a history. This is the story of the most remarkable life ever recorded on this earth. The life of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. We are going back 1,400 years to the Arabian Peninsula, to a world drowning in darkness, waiting for a light it did not yet know it needed. This is episode 1, and what you are about to hear will change how you see everything. The night air over Mecca had finally cooled. The streets were quiet, the date palms stood still, and somewhere in a modest home in the heart of this ancient city, a woman named Amina was about to give birth. Her name means trustworthy. Her pain that night was immeasurable, because she was doing this alone. The man she had loved, Abdullah, had died before he could hold his child, before he could whisper a name, before he could place his hand on his son's forehead and make a promise. He never got the chance. Amina gave birth alone, and the child she held was an orphan before he drew his first breath. Meanwhile, across the city, an old man was waiting. Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather, the leader of the Quraysh tribe, the most respected man in Mecca. When the news reached him, a boy, his legs carried him faster than his age should have allowed. He held the infant in his trembling arms, walked straight to the Kaaba, stood beneath the open sky, and gave thanks to his Lord. Then he gave the child a name, Muhammad. Someone asked him later, why that name? It was unusual, almost unheard of. He answered simply, I want Allah to praise him, and I want the people to praise him. He did not know, in that moment, standing under the stars with a newborn in his arms, how completely that prayer would be answered. But there was something else that night, something Amina had kept quiet, a dream she had been given months before the birth. In that dream, she had been told the name, Muhammad. The grandfather and the mother had received the same name through completely different paths. That was not a coincidence. Nothing about this child's life would ever be a coincidence. In Arabia at that time, sending a newborn to a wet nurse was not unusual. It was considered wisdom. 2 reasons drove the tradition. The first was health. Mecca's climate, dusty, scorching, unforgiving, was harsh on newborn lungs. The open desert plains were cleaner, freer, more forgiving. The second reason was language. In Arab culture, words were everything. Poetry was power. Eloquence was nobility. The purest Arabic was spoken not in the cities, but in the open land, among the tribe of Banu Sa'd. And so mothers sent their children there to absorb a language in its most beautiful form, before the city could corrupt it. But there was a problem. Wet nurses from Banu Sa'd were not coming to Mecca out of generosity. They came for payment, for connection, for the ongoing support of a living father who could provide for them. Muhammad had no living father. One by one, the wet nurses arrived. One by one, they assessed the babies. One by one, they chose the children of wealthy families with fathers still alive and left Mecca with them. Amina stood and watched, arms empty, heart breaking. Was no one going to take her son? They had traveled slowly because their animal was old and weak. They had to take turns walking just to spare it. By the time Halima searched Mecca, every baby had been taken. She was about to return home empty-handed, in the middle of a famine, with nothing to show for the difficult journey she had made. And then she met Abdul Muttalib. They spoke briefly. He told her about his orphaned grandson. Halima found her husband. She said, "I found nothing. But there is an orphan boy. I do not want to go back empty-handed. There may be blessings in him." Her husband agreed. She had no idea what she was actually saying yes to, because the moment Muhammad came into Halima's home, everything changed. Their old animal, suddenly strong and fast. Halima's milk, suddenly flowing where it had barely trickled. Her restless infant son, suddenly calm beside the Prophet. Their animals, finding grazing in land that others found barren. Their neighbors would return from the same fields with nothing. Halima's family came back full. 4 years passed. 4 years of barakah, of blessing, that Halima had never known before and would never fully know again. And then the time came to return him. She held him. She kissed him over and over. She wept openly. She did not want to let go, but she had no choice. What she carried back to Mecca that day, she would spend the rest of her life trying to understand. Amina had waited 6 years to hold her son properly. Now finally, he was beside her every day. She could reach for his hand. She could hear his voice. She could watch him grow. After a year and a half together, she decided to take him north, to Medina, to visit relatives, to show him the grave of the father he never met. They stood at Abdullah's grave together. Amina wept the way people weep when the wound has never fully closed. And beside her, a 6-year-old boy reached toward a grave with small hands that had nowhere to land. He had never known what a father felt like. That absence, invisible to others, had always been there. At that grave, he felt it fully for the first time. They comforted each other. Then they turned back toward Mecca. But somewhere on that road, on a stretch of desert called Abwa, Amina fell ill, quickly, devastatingly. She could feel what was coming. And the thing that hurt her most was not the pain in her body. It was the knowledge that this 6-year-old child, who had already lost a father, was about to lose his mother too. In her final moments, she looked at her son with eyes that held an entire lifetime of love in them. And she spoke her last words. "Every living being will die. Every new thing will age. Everything that ages will reach its end. I too will die. But my name will live, because I gave birth to someone pure, someone who will always remember me well." A few breaths later, the only sound in that desert was a child crying over his mother as body. He was 6 years old. He had no father. He had no mother. He was alone. And he had no idea yet that Allah was preparing him for something that would require him to understand every kind of human pain from the inside. He was going to need all of it. Abdul Muttalib brought the boy home. And from that moment, the child wanted for nothing in terms of love. The grandfather carried him everywhere. His own cushion placed in front of the Kaaba, the seat of honor that not even his own sons are permitted to share. He let Muhammad sit there. When others tried to move the child, Abdul Muttalib would stop them with these words, "Leave my son. I swear by Allah, one day this child will carry a great name." He gave him responsibilities. He took him to meetings where Mecca was governed. He treated him not like a grandchild, but like a successor. The boy watched everything, absorbed everything, learned how a leader speaks, how decisions are made, how a city is held together. For 2 years, this was his world. Then Allah took Abdul Muttalib too. The boy was 8 years old. And here's the truth that makes this life impossible to dismiss. Everyone he loved, Allah removed. His father, before he was born. His mother, at age 6. His grandfather, at age 8. Not by accident, not by cruelty, but because the man being shaped in that grief was going to stand before millions of people who had lost everything. He needed to know what loss felt like from the deepest possible place. He needed to understand where he could guide. He needed to grieve before he could heal others. And he was not finished learning yet. His uncle Abu Talib took him in, a good man, a kind man, a man who loved this nephew the way a father loves a son. But Abu Talib was not wealthy. There were nights the family rose from the dinner table still hungry. Muhammad understood quickly that he was a guest in someone else's home. You cannot ask as freely. You think twice before reaching. You notice when resources are limited and you hold yourself back out of respect. From an early age, he learned what it felt like to have less. But despite all of this, Abu Talib would not let him out of his sight. "Where is my Muhammad?" He would ask at mealtimes if the boy was absent. "Go and find him. Bring him here." And the boy, watching his uncle struggle, made a decision that surprised everyone around him. He went to Abu Talib and said, "Let me be the shepherd for your animals. You will not need to pay anyone else. I will do it." For a child his age, this was not a normal request. Abu Talib and his wife hesitated. They did not want him working under the burning Arabian sun, but he insisted. And somehow, he always found a way to be convincing without being demanding. So he became a shepherd. And in the silence of the open desert, away from the noise of Mecca, he found something most people never find in a lifetime: stillness. He would lie under the night sky and study the stars, watch the patterns of creation, ask questions no one around him was asking. Who made this? What does it mean? What is the purpose of all of it? He was 12 years old when Abu Talib and said needed to join a trade caravan to Damascus. The boy's heart sank. The one person who had protected him, who had made him feel like he belonged, was leaving. Everyone agreed the journey was too dangerous for a 12-year-old. Everyone said he should stay. After days of silent sadness, he approached his uncle. His voice was soft. His eyes were full. He said, "Uncle, where are you leaving me? With whom are you leaving me? I have no mother here. I have no father here." Abu Talib's resolve dissolved instantly. He changed his mind on the spot. The caravan set off, and Muhammad was on it. He was entering a new chapter, the beginning of a life in trade, a world that would teach him exactly what he needed to know for what was coming. Stop for a moment. Before we go further, you need to understand the world this man was living in. Because without understanding the darkness, you cannot understand the light. A little girl is in the desert with her father. She has never felt his warmth, never felt his affection. But today, for the first time, they are doing something together. Just the two of them. Her father is digging a hole. She does not understand why. She tries to help him dig. When the hole is deep enough, he pushes her in. Then, without a word, he begins to cover her with dirt. She screams. She struggles. She reaches up with small hands. He does not stop. This was Arabia in the age of ignorance. Jahiliyyah, the time before Islam. Daughters were considered a source of shame. Some fathers buried their newborn girls alive before they could draw their second breath. The lucky ones survived only to spend their lives invisible, voiceless, without rights, without inheritance, without protection. If a woman's husband died, a stranger could walk into her home and claim everything: her property, her children, her future. She had no recourse, no one to stand for her, no law to protect her. Tribal blood feuds ran for generations. If one man from a tribe was killed, any member of the rival tribe could be murdered in retaliation. Innocent children grew up fatherless, consumed by inherited hatred, preparing to kill people they had never met in vengeance for acts they never witnessed: drinking, gambling, oppression, every form of corruption, openly celebrated. The Kaaba, built by the Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, as a house of pure worship for one God, was now surrounded by 360 idols. People circled it without clothes. They clapped and danced around it. They had kept the rituals and lost every meaning behind them. The sun shone brightly over Arabia, but spiritually, the land was in complete darkness. Into this world, a man was being quietly prepared. A man who had lost everything and been given wisdom in return. A man who had been protected without ever knowing why. By the time he was 25, his reputation had spread through every corner of Mecca. Not through power, not through wealth, not through family connections. Through one thing only: honesty. People called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy. It was not a title anyone gave him. It was simply what people called him, naturally, the way you call something by what it obviously is. Merchants handed him their money for safekeeping. Strangers trusted him with their most valuable possessions. "Oh, Muhammad, will you hold my wealth? Will you look after what I have? I trust no one else." And here is what makes this extraordinary. Even after he declared his prophethood, even after the Quraysh opposed him fiercely, even after they called him a liar, they still did not take back what they had entrusted to him. They rejected his message, but they could not reject his character. Even his enemies trusted him with their valuables while publicly claiming he could not be believed. That contradiction told the whole truth. Around this time, the most successful businesswoman in Mecca was looking for someone to lead her trade caravan. Her name was Khadija bint Khuwaylid. She was known throughout Arabia, not just for her wealth, but for her character, her dignity, her discernment. She had been married twice. Both husbands had passed away. Many powerful men had sought her hand. She had turned every one of them down. She heard about Muhammad. She hired him to lead her caravan north. And she sent her most trusted servant, a man named Maysara, to observe him quietly and report back everything. Maysara watched. He took note. He could not stop watching. The care, the honesty, the dignity, the way he treated every person, stranger or companion, with equal respect. When the caravan returned, Maysara stood before Khadija and said simply, "I have never seen a man like him." Everywhere we went, people trusted him before he even spoke. Something shifted in Khadija. For a woman who had refused every proposal, who had decided she was done with marriage, she found herself reconsidering. There was a 15-year age gap. She was 40. He was 25. Would he even consider it? She decided, unusually for that time, to find out. She sent her closest friend Nafisa to speak to him privately. Nafisa asked, "Muhammad, what is holding you back from marriage?" He said, "I do not have enough wealth." She said, "What if wealth was not the obstacle? If you were offered beauty, nobility, dignity, and a suitable match, would you accept?" He asked, "Who?" She said, "Khadija." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "How would that even be possible?" She said, "Leave that to me." And he said, "In that case, yes." The wedding took place with a mar of 20 camels. And what was built in that home, in that marriage, was unlike anything Mecca had ever seen. Two souls so completely aligned that years later he would say of her, "Allah never gave me anyone better than her. When everyone denied me, she believed. When people called me a liar, she affirmed my truth. When others withheld, she gave everything she had. And Allah blessed me with children through her. Even Jibril, the angel of revelation, would one day send her salam, a greeting from her Lord and from the angel himself. That is the kind of woman Khadija was. That is the home that was being built, the foundation being laid for the greatest weight any human being has ever been asked to carry. He was 35 years old when Mecca nearly tore itself apart over a stone. The Kaaba had deteriorated over the years. The elders of Mecca gathered and agreed it needed to be rebuilt completely. They pooled their resources, refusing to include a single coin earned through unjust means. Even in their ignorance, some instinct told them, this place deserves clean hands. The reconstruction went smoothly until one moment stopped everything. The black stone, Hajar al-Aswad, placed in the corner of the Kaaba centuries earlier by the Prophet Ibrahim. Every tribe wanted the honor of lifting it back into position. The argument ignited instantly. This belongs to us. No, to us. Oaths were sworn. Threats were made. Some men swore they would fight to the death before surrendering this honor. For 4 to 5 days, no resolution came. Then the eldest among them stood and said, "Let the first person who enters through that gate be the one to decide. Whatever he says, we accept." Everyone fell silent. Everyone turned toward the gate, and then a figure appeared. The moment they saw him, the tension dissolved. "It is Alamin. It is Muhammad. Whatever he decides, we will accept it." He listened to the dispute. He said nothing for a moment. Then he said, "Bring me a cloth." He placed the black stone eye in the center of the cloth himself. Then he called one representative from each tribe and had them each take hold of a corner. Together, all tribes together, they carried the stone to the Kaaba, and with his own hands he placed it back in its position. No blood was shed. No oath was broken. No tribe was humiliated. Everyone had the honor. Everyone went home with their dignity. A crisis that could have split Mecca was solved in minutes by a man who had never studied conflict resolution, but somehow already knew that the deepest human need is to be seen and included. Not long after this, something began to shift inside him. Mecca had begun to suffocate him. The idols, the injustice, the noise of a city that had forgotten what it was built for. He began to withdraw, to seek silence. He started climbing a mountain just outside Mecca, Mount Nur, to a cave near its peak. The Cave of Hira, 621 meters up a steep, narrow path. He would climb alone and sit in silence for days at a time. Khadijah never questioned him, never doubted him. She sent food with him. She supported what she did not yet fully understand. He was approaching 40, and the universe, which had been waiting, was almost ready. The year was 610. The month was Ramadan. The night was Laylatul Qadr, the night of power. He was 40 years old. Inside the Cave of Hira, alone as he always was, he sat in the complete dark with nothing but moonlight reaching through the narrow opening. Deep reflection, deep stillness, deep quiet. He had no idea, no warning, no preparation, no voice telling him what was about to happen. And then the cave filled with light, a light so intense it was blinding, and from within that light, a presence. The angel Gabriel in the form of a man, filling the entire cave. A command came. One word, Iqra, read. He said, "I am not someone who can read." The angel embraced him and squeezed until he felt every ounce of breath leave his body. Then released him. "Read." "I cannot read." Another embrace, tighter, more complete. Released again. "Read." "I cannot read." A third time. So tight, he thought something inside him will break. Released. And in that moment, completely emptied of himself, he said, "What should I read?" And then, the first words of the Quran descended into the world. "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq." Read in the name of your Lord who created. Khalaqal insana min alaq. He created the human being from a clinging clod. Iqra wa rabbukal akram. Read, and your Lord is the most generous. Alladhi alama bil kalam, who taught by the pen. Alamal insana malam yalam, taught the human being what he did not know. The only sound in that caveus revelation. He was not someone who could read or write. But from that moment, he would teach the entire world what it truly means to read. He stepped outside the cave. The night air hit him. His heart was hammering. His body was shaking. He knew only one thing. He needed to get to Khadijah. He ran. Down the mountain. Through the dark. Faster than the fear could catch him. He burst through the door of his home drenched in sweat. Barely able to speak, with only one sentence left in him. "Cover me. Cover me." Khadijah did not panic. She did not ask questions. She did not add to the fear already in the room. She helped him lie down. She wrapped him gently. She sat beside him and stayed. When his breathing slowed, when he could finally speak, he told her everything. "I am afraid, Khadijah. I am afraid something terrible is happening to me." She looked at Hyman. She said something that silenced every fear in that room. Never. By Allah. Allah will never cause you harm. You maintain your family ties. You carry the burden of others. You give to those who have nothing. You honor your guests. You stand by the truth in every difficulty. Allah would never abandon someone like you. Every word landed precisely where he needed it to. That is what the right person at the right moment can do for a human soul. She did not stop there. She took him to her cousin, an elderly Christian scholar named Waraka ibn Nawfal, a man over 80 years old. A man who had spent his life studying earlier scriptures, the Torah, the Gospel, searching for what was coming. They told him everything. Waraka's eyes widened. He said the words quietly at first, then louder. Kudus, Kudus, holy, holy. Then he spoke clearly. The being who came to you is the same angel that came to Musa, to Moses. He is Namus al-Akbar, the great angel, and you are the prophet of this nation. There was a pause. Then Waraka said something else, something that shook the room. I wish I could be young and be alive when your own people drive you from your land. He stopped. Muhammad asked quietly, my own people will expel me? He was stunned. He had not a single enemy in Mecca, not one person who doubted him, not one conflict in 40 years. Waraka said, no one has ever carried a message like yours without his own people turning against him. And if I live to see that day, I will stand beside you. That night ended. They returned home. The next morning, Jibril appeared again. This time in a valley outside Mecca. He struck the earth with his heel. Water flowed. He showed Muhammad how to make wudu, ritual purification. Then he showed him salah, the prayer. 2 yurts, together, in that valley. The first prayer in the history of Islam was performed in a quiet valley outside Mecca by a man who had just received the heaviest responsibility any human being had ever been given. He returned home. He taught Khadijah everything Jibril had shown him. He led her in prayer. She stood behind him. Then their children joined. That household, the most peaceful home in all of Mecca, became the first congregation in the history of the world's final religion. They did not yet know what that meant. They only knew something had begun, something enormous, something that would never stop. In those early days, he told almost no one. The message was too new, too sacred, too fragile. He shared it only with those he knew most deeply. And then, a 10-year-old child saw something from the doorway. His name was Ali, son of Abu Talib, the nephew who had grown up watching this man from close. He watched the prayer. He did not fully understand it, but something in it reached a place inside him that nothing else had ever reached. After the prayer ended, he approached. What is this? The Prophet invited him to Islam. Ali did not answer immediately. He said he needed to speak to his father first. But that night, he thought it over, and he arrived at a conclusion that reveals the quality of the soul that was being drawn to this message. When Allah created me, he did not ask Abu Talib as permission. So why would I ask my father's permission to worship Allah? He returned the next morning and declared his faith. Ali, 10 years old, became the first child to embrace Islam. Shortly after, Abu Bakr returned from a trading journey in Yemen. One of the most respected men in Mecca, successful, wise, trusted, a close friend of the Prophet for many years. The leaders of Quraysh went to him first. They told him, your friend Muhammad has claimed to be a prophet. Go to him, speak sense to him, bring him back. They thought Abu Bakr would talk him out of it. They did not know Abu Bakr. He already had his answer before he knocked on the door. Because months earlier, a dream had been interpreted for him. A prophet would emerge in Mecca, and he, Abu Bakr, would follow him. Everything was already in place. He went to the Prophet. He asked him directly. The Prophet invited him to Islam, and the Prophet would later describe this moment with these words. Every person I invited to faith had some hesitation at first, except Abu Bakr. He did not hesitate for a single moment. Abu Bakr embraced Islam immediately, completely, without reservation, and from the very next day, he could not stay quiet. He went to his most trusted companions. He told them what he had found. He invited them to the same truth that had just changed his life. Through Abu Bakr alone, 6 of the most famous names in Islamic history embraced the faith: Uthman ibn Affan, Talha ibn Ubaidullah, Zubair ibn Awam, Abdur Rahman ibn Wf, Saad ibn Abi Waqqas, Uthman ibn Mazin. And the women, they too began to carry this light: Khadija, Fatima, Ruqayya, Kulthum, Fadl, Asma bint Abi Bakr, each one carrying the message in her own way to the women around her, knowing that this truth was not meant to stay in one house. It was meant for the world. But as the circle quietly grew, as the light began to spread, word was reaching places it was never supposed to reach. The leaders of Quraysh were beginning to hear things that made them deeply uncomfortable. And the price of carrying this message, which had not yet been paid, was about to come due. He started alone. One man, one message. One city that was about to turn against him with everything it had. The boycott was coming. The torture of the early Muslims was coming. The years of starvation were coming. The assassination attempts were coming. The heartbreak of Taif was coming. And through all of it, not for a single moment would he consider stopping, because he had been prepared for this entire life. Every loss, every hunger, every night under the stars, every silent hour in that cave, it was all preparation for what was about to begin. In episode 2, you will see what happens in the most powerful city in Arabidestes to destroy a man it cannot corrupt. The persecution, the courage, the faith that held when everything else was burning. Subscribe to HISTORVA, because this story minus 1,400 years later is still not finished. Salli ala Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him. This series, O Messenger, is our attempt to tell that story with the honesty, the depth, and the reverence it deserves. Every event in this series is drawn from authentic Islamic sources. Every detail has been carefully researched to honor the truth of what actually happened. We ask Allah to accept this work, to make it a source of benefit for every heart that watches it, and to forgive us for any shortcoming in how we tell it. Salli ala Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him, and upon his family, his companions, and all who follow his path until the last day. This is episode 1.